1 year ago, my grandparents flew Emirates nonstop Seattle to Dubai, and they've been talking about it nonstop ever since. See, their flight included a crew that spoke a host of languages, including their mother tongue, which is a dialect native to a small region in southern India. This is just one of the attention to detail that show that Emirates is a global aspirational brand. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here today. My name is Arthi, and I'm here with my colleagues Andrew, Dennis, and Kim. Now, from Emirates' humble origins in Dubai, it's grown into quite an expansive network. Hopefully even more so with our global expansion plan. Now I'll be handing this off to Dennis for a SWOT analysis of Emirates' current position.
Thank you. To lay the groundwork for our recommendations, we first conducted a SWOT analysis of Emirates' current market position. We noted that their core competencies were many of their strengths, a connection-based system focused on emerging markets and all centered around an efficient global hub. Certain weaknesses we identified were high cost compared to their low cost competitors, higher depreciation and operating costs due to flying such a young fleet, as well as high marketing and sales costs due to the necessity of marketing to a worldwide audience. Some key opportunities our group honed in on were growth in emerging markets, expansion of service on existing routes, as well as a boom in air cargo demand, especially driven from demand from Asia and e-commerce. Notable threats we identified is the rise of other Gulf carriers, such as Qatar Airlines and Etihad, our competitors copying and adopting many of the innovative cost-cutting and passenger amenities that Emirates has pioneered. And lastly, the fact that Emirates is one of the largest airlines to not be a member of an air alliance, such as oneworld or Star Alliance. And now I'm going to hand it off to Kim to introduce our three-pronged solution.
Thank you, Dennis. As you know, Emirates already has such a global presence. We wanted to create a diverse plan to help them increase their powerhouse even more. In order of priority, we have untapped, unloaded, and underserved. Untapped, we suggest that Emirates open a hub in Chile and South America. Unloaded, we suggest that Emirates increase their cargo in China, specifically domestically among them, as well as inter-Asia routes. And finally, underserved, we suggest that Emirates increase and expand further into Europe, specifically into Iceland. Starting off with Chile. Now, Emirates has routes all around the world. However, there are only currently 3 in South America, all of which are in Brazil. We took this as a huge market opportunity and furthered our analysis, focusing on the 3 top countries for tourism in South America: Argentina, Brazil, and Chile. Both Argentina and Brazil are currently having a lot of political issues and stability, as I'm sure you're all very well aware, and also some GDP growth and issues within there. So therefore, we cut those ones out right away, leaving us with Chile. Chile is not only the most politically stable country in South America, but also in the past year, there's been a 28% growth in tourism. This is causing the Chilean government to take tourism a lot more seriously. Our plan starts off with domestic flights and international flights to Chile for the first couple of years, and by year 5, eventually opening up a new hub to help Emirates further reach the Americas. Some of the problems we see with this, however, are airport capacity. Santiago Airport, the one we are choosing to go with, is currently expanding, again due to the government taking tourism more seriously. If Emirates is to joint venture with the government, this not only will increase our political goodwill with that government, but also help give us more control over the design of the airport as we need. Second of all, cost. The regular Chilean's GDP is well below our standard target market. We don't see this as an issue, however, due to the fact that tourism is increasing at such a large percent, and we can take advantage of that by just transporting the people already going there. Additionally, with a new hub in Chile, that gives us greater access to North and South America, which are within our target market. Finally, competitors. LATAM does have their hub in Santiago already. However, they do primarily service North and South America. Therefore, as an international airline, Emirates can bring in people from Europe, Africa, and Asia as well to further increase the target market. Now I'm going to hand it off to Arthi to go over China. Thank you. So, Boeing's recently released 2016-2017 World Air Cargo Forecast reports 4.2% growth annually over the next 20 years in this industry. But, as you know, Emirates Sky Cargo is mainly through passenger planes and not through freighters. So how, you ask, can it keep up with global logistical giants such as FedEx, UPS, and DHL? Well, LATAM, South America's largest airline, just noted a hit here financially in 4Q 2015 and has responded by cutting its use of freighters and increasing its use of wide-body passenger planes. Emirates is already capitalizing on this trend, which is only one of the reasons why it retains a competitive advantage over traditional shipping schemes while maintaining and maximizing operational efficiency. Asia will continue to lead growth within this sector, specifically domestic China and intra-Asia markets, which are planned to grow 6.2 and 5.5% respectively. Emirates currently services 21 countries within Asia, but this growth, paired with Asia's booming luxury market, provides optimal opportunities for us to expand within this region. Now I'm going to hand it off to Andrew for more on Iceland.
Thank you very much. So our next step in this global expansion plan is that we suggest Emirates break the ice, so to speak, in Northern Europe by expanding one of its current routes to Iceland. So note that this will not be a direct, non-stop route from Dubai to Reykjavik, but rather an expansion of their Frankfurt route. One reason we chose Iceland is because of its people. About 12% of its workforce is already involved in working for a tourism industry. We also chose it because of politics. We already have an air service agreement between the United Arab Emirates and Iceland, so this would make flying there a lot easier. We also chose it because of its growth potential. Tourism is expected to grow by 20% per year for the rest of the decade, causing the airport, Keflavik International Airport in Reykjavik, to expand to accommodate up to 40 million passengers as well by 2040. As you can see from this list, Iceland is pretty well serviced by other airlines, except only 2 of them service out of Frankfurt, which is one of Europe's largest and busiest airports. The top 2 on the left, Icelandair and WOW Air, are low-budget, low-cost carriers, so we would be able to differentiate Emirates as being a higher-class airline. You will also notice that 2 partners of Emirates are on this list, JetBlue and EasyJet. It's worth noting that EasyJet does not fly out of Frankfurt, and JetBlue only flies out of North America to Iceland, so there would be no conflict there. Some of the risks that we see include demand. Some of you may be wondering, how would any Middle Eastern passenger want to go to Iceland? But Emirates is such a global brand that it has passengers from all around the world. Another way we were able to mitigate that is by having it as a connecting flight rather than a non-stop flight from Dubai. Our second reason sort of ties into demand. Instead of having a giant A380 plane flying from Frankfurt to Reykjavik, which may not work until we evaluate demand, we predicted that we would use a Boeing 777-300 extended range plane, which already flies into Frankfurt daily in the morning. And our third risk would be the geography of Iceland. It is located far in the northern hemisphere of the world, meaning that its winters are harsh. So we would operate only on a seasonal basis as we evaluate demand in the summertime. After that, we can expand as needed. This is our timeline as of right now. It is a very boiled down version of it. Year 1, all of the projects that you have seen so far will be surveying, working with the country to make sure that this route is feasible and legitimate. That will also spill over into year 2, especially for Chile and China, which need to petition for an air service agreement. Iceland will begin its weekly flights during year 2. By year 3, we expect all of these projects to be halfway to their production, essentially having flights intra-Asia to Chile and to Iceland. This continues in year 4 and expands to year 5, where we will have a hub in Chile and be working domestically in China for cargo, and again, having daily flights to Iceland. Next, I will hand it off to Dennis for financials.
Thank you. One of the concerns Kim mentioned about creating a Chile hub was airport capacity. Like she said, the Santiago International Airport is currently undergoing a large expansion project, adding 4 new wings. We propose a $180 million joint venture with the Chilean government to add a 5th wing exclusive to Emirates flights and to ensure that the airport can accommodate all the planes that we fly. Secondly, we propose a $20 million investment over the next 5 years to recruit, train, and retain high-quality talent necessary to staff and service our planes. This leads to a total of about a $200 million investment over the next 5 years. Consequently, we project about 11% year-over-year revenue increase from South America as soon as regular flights to and from Chile start occurring in 2018. Moving on to our China proposal. One way we measured demand was by the number of parcels sent. This year, China recorded a 55% year-over-year increase in this number of parcels sent. Even scaling this number down, we can see that the demand is self-evident. This is even exacerbated when you compare with the growth of domestic Chinese air carriers. This discrepancy represents a large market for Emirates to expand into. Emirates has been profitable for 28 years, a feat that is no joking matter. By implementing the recommendations in Flight Plan 2021, we hope that this growth will continue long into the future.
Just a quick recap. Our 3 ideas to help Emirates become a global house are untapped, underserved, and unloaded. We'd love to open it up for any questions, and we really appreciate you taking your time to listen to our presentation.
discussion on the air cargo. Are you planning on a domestic market? So does that mean you would be flying just domestically in China or also utilizing a hub in Dubai?
Yes, thank you for that question. So mainly yes, domestically within China and intra-Asia, meaning Japan, Thailand, China are our top three places that we're looking. Specifically, this is because they are not serviced enough for the demand as shown. And Emirates has such a good opportunity to tap into the market here. If you have any more specific questions about operations within that, I'd be happy to address. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Emirates' brand is basically the luxury, the quality, the fact that the people who fly on it love the flight. Would hauling cargo in China tarnish that brand?
Yeah, definitely, that's a great question. No, it would not, because passenger airlines have been doing this actually right now. Many passenger airlines do it, and Emirates is currently 9th in the world for air cargo, and this is behind actual air cargo companies. And specifically within China, or within Asia, the only luxury airline is Royal Thailand, which is very small. And so to provide that opportunity and to just utilize the cargo as it's already being used should not provide a hindrance. Thank you.
What's the split? Do you have a financial slide that shows the split between your cargo and your passenger revenue?
We do not have a slide. However, it currently accounts for about 15% of our bottom line, and we project that to grow to about 20% within 5 years with the noted expansion plan.
So explain that to me. So you have these, if you're just looking at these 3 locations, are you going to start at 15% and grow to 20? Are you going to start tell us more about what that
We currently bring in, this fiscal year, 15% of our revenue from the cargo division. With the implementation of the Chinese plan, we expect to grow at least 5% within the next 5 years. And the Iceland recommendation, if you wanted a breakdown, that we fly so many routes that marginally that addition of 1 route is more or less not significant, because we can fly so many routes and we can on demand either swap the planes or change the frequency of the routes because we are independent, that a financial analysis would be highly dependent on market conditions.
If I understand correctly, your growth strategy in 2 of the markets, in Chile and in Iceland, are largely based on growth in the tourism market, in both areas. The tourism market is not known for paying premium prices that the business market is willing to pay for the higher class, higher-end seating, which Emirates has really been relying upon. How are you addressing the business aspect of the markets within those 2 target markets?
That's a really good question. Arthi touched on a little bit earlier about how Asia specifically is really increasing their demand for luxury brands. So we plan on helping run flights through that area in order to bring those passengers over there. However, we do have our partner airlines that we can work with to do the lower cost flights as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
So in terms of servicing Iceland, kind of piggybacking on that, through Frankfurt, for those customers that are brand loyal, will that mean a significant increase in kind of 3-leg flights in order to come through Dubai to Frankfurt and then get to Iceland? And have you looked at that as being a potential impediment?
Sorry, if I can clarify, are you asking if this implementation of a 3-legged flight would cause Emirates to make other 3-legged flights in the future?
No. Do you think people will be interested in flying a 3-legged flight, or are you counting on them essentially beginning within Europe somewhere, flying to Frankfurt and then hopping on an Emirates flight to Iceland?
Good question. So we are expecting mainly for passengers to come in Frankfurt and then travel to Reykjavik, especially because Frankfurt has a catchment area that is very large and will be able to suck in a lot of passengers, especially because it's also a connection airport, sort of like Dubai, although the option definitely is there to connect from Dubai to Frankfurt to Reykjavik, especially because that's one of Emirates' strengths, is having those connections.
Can I ask about what is the impact of your growth strategy in terms of our capital expenditures? Are the planes that we're actually going to use, where we're going to get those, how much we're going to have to put out to buy new planes? What is the impact of this growth strategy on that?
Absolutely. So we realized that we have already purchased about $80 billion in new planes, with about 20 planes delivered this year and more coming in the future. We believe that these current growth plans are well within the capacity of our current orders coming in, as well as retasking flights from Europe and Americas into other markets to either serve the Chile flight or to service the air cargo. The air cargo should not be as large of a drain on our plane capacity because it synergizes with our passenger planes, so demand can be adjusted on the fly, especially for flights that we're flying today. So,
I would like to add on to that as well. One of the reasons why we chose to make Iceland a connecting flight is so that we could use a plane that is already in use on its route to Frankfurt. So that way it would not be a completely new plane that would be going up to Iceland.
You talked about the air service agreement that's in existence with Iceland, which was a little bit surprising to me that Emirates already had one. But I'm sure that was much easier to negotiate than the agreement that will need to be negotiated with China. Everybody wants China. Do you anticipate that as a deal breaker?
No, not at all. Kim, if you can refer to our timeline. So we actually made sure that we had increased time allotted for getting an air service agreement intra-Asia and specifically within domestic China. If you can see, it's a little unclear, but we specifically plan to begin domestic China flights in 2020, giving us ample time to really negotiate that. Thank you. Additionally, since we do already fly into China internationally, we do have somewhat of a relationship with the government, and so we think that we can use that as an advantage while negotiating for domestically. Yes, maybe I should clarify. We do have fifth flight freedom rights within China, and we're looking to expand to 7th. So that should not be too much of an undertaking, but we are allotting ample time for that. Thank you.
In your growth into Iceland, I see that one of your competitive threats is really on Icelandic Air. They offer free stopovers in Reykjavik, and I know a lot of people have actually taken advantage of that. How are you coping with that competitive threat that poses for your tourism?
Good question. So Iceland Air is a compared to Emirates, is a relatively small airline that really only services one market. And if we're comparing it to how Emirates operates sort of as a luxury airline in comparison to it, we can see that they are very different. Iceland Air definitely offers more low cost and those sort of free stopovers. But the fact is that about 81% of passengers into Keflavik International Airport are there for leisure. And we expect that demand to correlate with a leisurely flight as well. Some of the reviews that we have researched, including from places like Kayak and other travel databases, have a significantly lower rating for Icelandic Air than they do for Emirates.
As the CEO of this group, one of my concerns about including such a small center as Iceland is, are we missing an opportunity somewhere else? I mean, you spent all that time and all that effort to set up for a relatively very small market that doesn't go anywhere.
If you could refer to the alternative slide. We did examine some alternatives, including these ones on the screens. We wanted to really go with the extension plans instead of doing more nonstop routes, especially because there are already extension plans in place. So we thought it would be a great idea to add another three-legged flight to have more Emirates passengers get on at a different hub rather than Dubai. We looked at these four, including Paris to Berlin. We knocked that one out because there would also be another air service agreement in negotiating with Berlin. We looked at a very long haul route going from Los Angeles to Honolulu to Tokyo, and it turns out that too many of our codeshare partners are already involved with those, and we don't want to have to deal with conflict. And we also looked at Copenhagen to Helsinki to service the Scandinavian market, but we knocked that one out just because there isn't really the demand for going to two Scandinavian countries, especially when there are airlines dedicated just to Scandinavia. And we also looked at Dubai to Fiji, more of another touristy option, but we knocked that one out specifically because Qantas Airlines had already had that market under wraps, and we did not see a need to push towards that market.
Piggybacking on that question, you mentioned the seasonality of the Iceland area. What are you going to do, just park that 777 in a garage during the winter?
Good question. So like I mentioned before, since it's already in use for Frankfurt, for the time being, we expect the plane to just simply stop at Frankfurt and go back to Dubai as it is now. Another possibility for Emirates in the future is to actually operate all year round. There are airlines that do operate year round into Reykjavik, Iceland, but we would need to evaluate demand further for that.
In terms of Chile and your expansion there, are you looking at partnering with local airlines in the short term before, and then maybe beginning domestic flights? Or?
That's a good question. We really wanted to focus, out of the 28% of growth in tourism that I mentioned, that's international. And so there's a lot of different international travelers, specifically from North America. Thank you.
So thank you all for coming. There is an awards reception now up in Anthony's Forum. So please feel free to head to the awards reception and the judges will deliberate and announce the winner in a little bit.